to that one. Awesome. Okay. And those of you on Zoom, 6. I'm sorry.
This is not on.
Oh, okay. So it's just me.
It could be just because that is giving us problems.
Okay.
So-
Well, hopefully it will. Nope, it just stopped. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if. Oh. Anyone? Bueller? Bueller. All right.
So it would be, yeah, sorry about
It's okay.
on our.
All right, one more time. Nope. That's it.
Oh, it's gone.
It's gone. Bummer.
Okay.
All right, I'll do my best. All right. Maybe. Anyone? No.
Really? Stand by. Okay, stand by. Try this one.
Hey, I can hear you on Zoom if you're asking.
Can you guys hear us on Zoom?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is David.
Anyone?
Because it's sometimes where it blows the
Hey, I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
else, even though it sounds like. Okay.
Can you?
Oh, someone
Oh, you
says-
can hear us now.
Someone says it's working. Which is working? What's working? Because I don't hear anything on these.
Yep, we can hear you.
Like this.
Hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
From. Because I'm not here. You guys aren't hearing anything on this microphone.
Yeah, we can't hear them.
I don't want to cough into it. Ah, okay. This microphone, we can, if this is working, but we cannot hear you guys. Is this correct? Can you, one of you try to talk to us?
Test, test. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So this would have been on.
All right.
Let's change this.
Just trades. Well, it's gonna feel weird because it doesn't sound to me like it's working. So if I'm not holding it close enough or something, you guys might need to like let me know. And I don't tend to look at the Zoom stuff very often, so I apologize. But somebody kick me if
Okay.
need be. And I apologize too because I am sucking down cough drops because I just got over being sick. I'm not sick. If I cough, I promise I'm not sick. But I am still having the cough going on. So apologize. But so it looks like we have 6 on the Zoom and we have 5 here. So welcome. I'm Amber. For those of you who don't know me, can we just in the room, can we just have you guys tell me your names just as a refresher and maybe for each other? So real quick.
We'll pretend like that's working.
My name's Tyler Stubbs.
Tyler.
Mhm.
Okay. Good to see you. I know I've seen you before. Okay. Tristan, as everyone knows Tristan. Okay. I just want you guys to know each other too.
Lyric Kanan.
Lyric, nice to see you.
I was in your What If They Say Yes class.
Yes.
I'm Tyson Fillmore.
Tyson, nice to see you. Nice. All right.
And my name's Joe Haas.
Joe, nice to see you. Awesome. And I know most of you are fairly new, and I don't know who's online on the Zoom, but most of you are fairly new in the business. I personally, actually June is the month I got my license 26 years ago. So yeah, I was 21, almost 22 years old when I got my license. Actually, maybe it was July. It was July because I was 22 when I got my license. And I love real estate. I love that every day is different. And I love that every day I get to put together a puzzle and make it work very specifically for my client that's in front of me that day. So today we're going to talk about, if you have any questions for me too, don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer questions. But I've been doing this a long time. I've actually only been at KW a little over 5.5 years now. And I wish I would have made that move a lot sooner because you guys are super, super lucky in that you are taught things at an early stage of your career that I was never taught. Like I had to reinvent the wheel over and over and over and over again because no one ever taught me these things. So take advantage of it, take advantage of the learning. Sometimes it does feel like a lot, but just do it. How it happens here in class, and you'll be much better off. It's funny. Somebody asked me the other day, like, how many people in your database? And I was like, dang, if only I would have started like keeping track of my database when I was a brand new agent, like it would have been so much higher. My numbers would have been so much higher, but it is what it is. So here we go. So we're going to talk about transaction. And today after class, you're going to be able to we're talking about sellers. You're going to identify what a qualified seller is and how to get that follow-up appointment, how to apply different approaches to getting the appointment, and some different pre-listing criteria things that you need to do to build your confidence. I know when you get your license the first time and you're going on an appointment, you feel like the seller sometimes knows more than you do. I did when I was 22 years old and I had never sold a house. I remember my very first listing appointment was a friend of mine, and I had my broker come with me. I was at a really, really small brokerage because I did not know what to say. I had never sold a home before. So we're going to talk about some things that are going to help you build your confidence and demonstrate expertise in handling objections. So, but before we get started, tell me what kind of questions do you guys have? What kind of things do you want to learn? What are you looking forward to getting out of this class? Win the seller. This is a really short class, but what do you want to get out of it? Lyric?
So like I call a lot of sell by owners, so kind of focus around sell by owners and
Pride issues. I love those for sell by owners. They're fun. Good. Okay. We will talk a little bit about some of that for sure. Anyone else have anything you're looking forward to getting out of today? I forgot. Tell me. Tyson, thank you. I'm trying, but all right.
Yeah, I just want to like learn some objections, like how to get over some objections. I feel like one of the biggest ones is getting the commission. Because I feel like they really don't want that. I can just sell my house by myself, like what they're saying.
Right. Totally. And the market is changing, but I recently said to a seller, he's like, I could just throw a sign in my yard and sell my house. I know I can. And I said, I know you can too. You could do it in a heartbeat, but do you know that you would be getting the best price for it? You could sell it, but does that mean you're going to get top dollar? Because let me give you some examples. And I was able to give him some examples of houses that I had recently sold where I said, the first offer that came in was not the best offer. And when you're for sale by owner, you're face to face with your buyer. They're going to be pushing you to accept this offer, accept our offer, right? Because they're like, we want this. And the sellers kind of feel bad. They don't have anyone working for them. I was actually able to show specific examples. One where my client got $55,000 more just by waiting the weekend and looking at other offers versus taking that first offer that was a good cash offer. But we got $55,000 more than that good cash offer just by hesitating, like giving it a pause. Like, no, we're going to wait the weekend and see. Just very specific things I was able to show them. So things like that, you don't have to have had that personal experience, but you can show them, you can take from our stories as other agents and use those. So cool. Now, are all of you guys on a team or the Transcend team, or where are you guys at with that? What's it called? Productivity? I don't know. The name keeps changing. Sorry. Are you guys all on that team? I know the team. No, Joe, you're on your own. Okay. Tristan, you're on Wild team. And then Lyric and Tyson. Okay, cool. Just so I know like where you guys are at. I've always been a solo agent. So some of the things that I do are going to be different. And some of the things but that's the beauty of real estate. I tell people every time I teach class, like there's no wrong. As long as you're not doing anything illegal or immoral, there's no wrong. You can do it your way. I can do it my way. Totally fine. It's what works for my clients might not work for your clients. Right. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So we are going to, so this is where we're at in the transaction. We're in the win the seller. And this is like what we just talked about. What we're going to go through. How do we determine that a seller is an A seller? Do you know what that means? Like ranking your sellers A, B, C, D. And then getting the appointment, pre-listing packet, listing appointment, listing agreement, recap and and then you guys will work on your other stuff. Someone want to read this quote for us? Anyone want to read? Thanks. Okay, thanks.
While leads are vital for seller listings are critical to your ability to build it into its highest level with the lowest costs.
Totally true. Gary Keller said leads are vital. So work those leads, but seller listings are critical to building your business. I like working with buyers. I like working with sellers. I do both, but working with sellers gives me so much more control right now, especially in this market, and gives me a lot more opportunities. So we've already talked kind of a little bit about how to get your buyers to sign an agreement, all that stuff in your other classes. But like I've had very recently, I had a listing in my own neighborhood. This was really kind of funny. I had it under contract. So I had the sale pending sign out in front of it. And I got a call off the sign of my listing. And the guy said, hey, so I see you work in Saratoga Springs. I live in Saratoga Springs. He says, I see you work in Saratoga Springs and I'm looking for an agent in Saratoga Springs. And I was like,
What did you say?
the sign in front of my neighbor's house. And I said, yeah, I actually live in Saratoga Springs. He says, oh, I do too. And I said, where do you live? Turns out the guy lived on my street. I did not know. But he's like, he did not know a realtor. I'm like, who doesn't know a realtor? Like, who does not know a realtor? Like, seriously. But and I asked him, I'm like, how do I not? Whoa, there we go. We got some sound now. Thank you. So I asked him, I'm like, how do I not know you? He lived clear on the other end of my street. And he says, well, we're not really social. I'm like, seriously, we have every Halloween in my backyard. We have a neighborhood party that the whole street is invited to. So I said, you've never come to my house. I've invited you. It was kind of funny. He was like, oh, well, sorry. He was actually a really nice guy, but I had never met him before. He just doesn't come out of his house, apparently. But anyway, he called me because he had a house to sell. And not the house he lived in on my street, but a different house in the older part of the neighborhood that he didn't know an agent. So I actually went over to the house, checked it out, and asked, went through it. He was in the middle of remodeling it and asked him like, what do you think it's worth? And he told me, and I was like, yeah, you're about $100,000 too low. Like seriously, he had no clue. But it turned out I was going to list the house. Turned out I had a buyer. We didn't even list it. My buyer bought the house before. So it was like the best case scenario, but that kind of thing can happen when you have your sign in somebody's yard. I was not. I didn't end up representing him on the sale because I was already representing my buyer. So I wouldn't, I told him, I said, I won't represent you as the seller, but obviously it's a win-win. Obviously I live on your street and I want to be friends after this is over. Like I want to be able to see you and not, hide because it's a good deal for everybody. So those kind of things can come from listings when you do it right. Okay. So again, apologize for the cough drops. Okay. So what is an A seller? Qualified seller. What do you guys think? Lyric?
Motivated and in a rush to sell.
Love it. Yes. They need to sell. They're motivated. They're in a rush. And maybe not even always in a rush, but they actually have some real reason why they need to sell. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Realistic. Someone who's realistic and financially able to do what they need to do to sell the house. Because I've been doing this for so long, it was really, really hard during the days of the short sales, which I really, really, knock on wood, hope we don't get back to. Because I would have sellers that wanted to sell and I literally would talk them out of it at that time because they couldn't afford to sell. They were upside down in their house. They owed more on it than they could sell it for. And they were not financially able, even though they really, really wanted to, they didn't have the financial means to be able to do that. And every once in a while, I did have a seller who needed to like move out of state for a job, and they'd have to bring in $50,000 to closing to pay off their mortgage. And that was painful, not gonna lie. Those were some painful. Yeah, this was, I had clients literally have to bring in $50,000 to close on their house to be able to move out of state for a job in order not to do a short sale because they were upside down. So that was rough. And it was rough for me sitting there knowing I'm getting paid, and a lot of that money is coming to me of that 50,000. But then I had to realize that I did my job. They hired me to do a job and I did it. So it was really a mind shift change for me to be like, it's not about the money. It's about my job that I did for them. They hired me. I did my job. I did it well. I did the best I could for them with what the market has. The market's going to change, but the needs of buyers and sellers don't. They still have to sell. So we talked about they're ready, they're motivated, they're able, and they're willing. So sometimes I actually had one recently, excuse me, a seller call me up. She really wants to move, but she really, really, really doesn't. She has every reason in the world, every excuse why she can't move. I've given her every opportunity. Hey, we can do this bridge loan. We can do this because she needs to sell before she can buy. She just has an excuse for everything. And even in I'm like, well, where do you want to live when you sell? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's start with, would you like to live in Orem? Oh, I don't know. I mean, she just really has no willingness to go there. She's like, I really want out of this house, but everything's a but. So she's just not willing. She's not there yet. And then others who's not a qualified seller, people who are just kind of testing the waters. Like you said, maybe they're like, well, if I could get 3 million for my house, then I would sell it. That's not a great seller for me. I don't want that. I don't want my sign in front of their house because then it makes me look foolish. Who's the agent that took that listing? I don't want that. At one time I got a referral from one of my past sellers. I didn't know much about these people. The guy called me up and said, hey, can you come tell us what our house is worth? We're thinking about selling. Okay, great. So I get there. The instant I get in the door, something's off. I could tell something was off. I might have told this story before in a different class, but so I get there, the wife is just kind of glaring at me. She's really not warming up to me at all. And I'm like, this is really weird. Show me the house, do the, we're walking through. I'm trying to build some rapport with them. Oh, how do you know whoever it was that referred you to me? Just really trying to have a chat and get to the reason of why they want to sell. And so we finally sit down at the kitchen table and I said, so why is it that you want to sell? Where do you want to go to? And he said, well, we want to downsize. We want to get into something all on one level. They were in a multi-level house. And the wife just looks at me and she goes, hold on. I'm like, what did I do? And she goes, I'm not sure we're in a position to sell. And I was like, okay, that's totally fine. What questions do you have? Maybe this is just a good time to answer some questions and give you an idea. And she says, I have to tell you, our son died recently in this house. He grew up here. This was his house. I don't think I'm emotionally in a place where I can sell this house. Totally understand. And that was something that I did not expect. No one prepped me for. The friend who referred him kind of could have given me a heads up, but I was just not prepared for that. So I said, you know what? Totally fine. It's when the time is right. I'm just here to give you information. And when the time is right, hopefully I can help you. But if the time is not right, I am not here to push you. I'm not here to press you to do something. And I could tell her husband was like, no, but I really, really want to. And she was just not having it. Her just shut down. She just was emotionally And you gotta respect people and where they're at, because that was what I thought was an A buyer when I walked in the door was no longer. They're now way back burner for me. They got to work it out on their side before I can even start to begin. So, okay. So able, ready, willing to do business in the next 14 days. Pretty quick, right? Right now. And, but you have to keep in touch with people to keep and capture their mind share. So our goal is to get the listing or get the appointment to get the listing and then sell the house. I don't want to just get the listing. I want to sell the house. Okay, so we want to, sorry, trying to keep track of the, okay. So listings are awesome because it gives you those little marketing opportunities like we talked about. But we want to also, in my old office years ago, there was an agent who doesn't live here in the area anymore, but he was awesome at getting listings. Like he could go out, get somebody to sign with him, and then they would never hear from him again. He was the worst at following up and customer service and keeping them in the loop. And if he sold it, great, they felt happy, but like he was terrible about getting repeat customers because he did not give that customer service. So we want to give our best efforts, let them know that we're grateful they want to work with us. And hopefully those are going to lead to relationships, which are going to give us repeat and referral business. Another time, I actually got a phone call from a builder. I actually thought it was a scam at first because I was like, what? I got a phone call from a builder and they said, we're looking for a listing agent in this area. And we noticed you sold a fair amount of homes in this area. I'm looking at agents' listings on the MLS and I'm looking for the ones that have good photos and good descriptions of the properties. And yours stood out. I was like, exactly. I really honestly thought it was like, am I being punked? Like, this is weird call out of the blue, like completely out of the blue. And he says, I can't, this guy, he was a builder, and he says, I can't stand it when agents have typos. And I'm really, really particular about that in my listing descriptions and things. It's like things are misspelled, things are not described properly. And pictures, I mean, it is worth, I think my last listing, I spent a little bit more because I did drone shots, I did video, I did everything. I think I spent $210. It is not that much money to get really good photos that stand out. The neighbors look at this and go, wait, that's that house? It looks good. Like sometimes I've had neighbors say that to me, like, I've been in that house. These pictures look really good. Like it doesn't look that good in real life. I'm like, well, we did some staging, we did this, but that stands out to neighbors. And I have had neighbors come to me and say, if I ever need to sell my house, you're my girl, which is amazing. That's what we want, right? So we want to build those relationships. Most recently, I did sell one of my neighbors' houses, and just completely unknown to me, they had a friend in a different neighborhood that needed to sell. They said, so they called me up and they said, hey, Joe told me to call you. We need to sell our house. We're building a house down south and we need to be out by the end of June. So we actually just closed on that house last week and they're not going to move till the end of June. But like, you just never know who your source is going to be, right? If I could tell you today, Joe, who I'm referencing, who used to be my neighbor till I just sold his house, he lived next to me for 4 years and he has sent me so many referrals. I actually sat down with my daughter the other day because we were trying to figure it out, like how much business has really come from Joe. And we did kind of like this family tree chart, like of, okay, from Joe, I got this, but then they sent me these guys and they sent me these guys. 30 plus deals in 4 years from meeting one client. That's a lot of business from one client. But had I not done a good job for him the very first time, I would have gotten one deal and been done, one and done, right? The one and done agents are the ones that burn out the fastest. The ones that can get 30 deals out of one client. I'm living a good life. I'm not going to lie. I love my phone rings. I pick it up. Yes, I'll come list your house. That's a good day for me. So you do have more control of your time and you have more opportunities to market. So part of that with the marketing is I tell so when you get somebody that says, oh, I've got somebody that'll do it for 1%, right? Or I can just throw it on Homey, whatever, another discount brokerage. And then they'll do it for me for nothing, right? This is what I say to those people. I'm a firm believer in you get what you pay for. Do you believe that as well? Like, do you go to the dollar store and expect that what you get there is going to last you for 50 years? No. You expect it's going to be trash and you're going to throw it away next week. Right? So I kind of use that same philosophy, and I've won listings over a discount brokerage chain that they were like, well, we could just go with them and it would be cheap. I'm like, yeah, it could. You totally could. And it could be cheap and it can be hell. You can do all the things yourself. You're going to have to interact with the buyer, which to me, the hardest house I've ever sold was my own house. I hate selling my own house. First of all, I know everything I don't like about it. And actually, this is a good story. So I actually had a friend that was doing a for sale by owner. And I was just like, why are you doing this? Like, she's my friend. She's my good friend. And I said, okay, it hadn't sold. It had been on for months. And this, it had been on for months. So I finally said, okay, Ruth, come walk me through your house like I'm the buyer. What are you doing? Show me through your house. And so she walks me through the house. We walk through, we walk in the front door. Oh, this is broken, but we're fixing it. Oh, this right here, this light bulb, we're going to replace that. The whole house. She thinks she's just being honest and doing the right thing by telling people things and pointing things out. And so I just let her. I walked through the whole house with her. And this is, we hate this and this, we hate that. I'm like, oh boy. And nothing was wrong with her house. Like, there was literally they're not tiny little things, but it's that where you get to the death of 1,000 paper cuts, where it's like, I said, at the end, I said, Ruth, if I'm your buyer, I'm running screaming right now, because I think there's so much wrong with your house and there's nothing wrong with your house. So you need someone who's not you to show your house. You need to not be there when your house is being shown, because you're too nice. And not every seller is that way, but for her, she's just too nice and she thinks she's being honest and being fair. And so I did end up listing that house, and I did end up selling it fairly quickly. And she was just like, huh. And they didn't have to deal with the whole showing it 1,000 times. They just could go hands off at that point. It's in Amber's hands. She'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Right. So that was a great example to me of why you don't want to sell your own house. I literally, one of my own houses, I walked in, I hated the green carpet. I walked in, the buyer walked in, and I said, oh, we'll give you an allowance for the carpet. And they were like, why? We like it. I was like, crap, why did I just give money away? That's with someone else's house. I don't even bring up the green carpet. Let them bring it up, right? But for me, I knew I had always hated that green carpet. I hated it from day one. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, this is my house. People are walking in it. I've got to be, let them know that I hate this green carpet, because they would think that I'm weird if they think I like it. You know what I mean? So for sell by owner is almost never a good thing. And another example that I have, I had a neighbor that was considering for sell by owner. This was a couple years ago. They have a little house, and they said, if we could just get $350 out of it, this was back then, then we would be thrilled. We would be absolutely thrilled. And I said, okay, they said, we could just throw a for sale sign out, 340, 350, we're happy. Like you totally could do that. Absolutely, you could. But there are some strategies that we use as agents that will help you get even more, because the market was just starting to heat up. Like it was just starting to get a little bit better. And so I told him, I said, I want you guys to go out of town, go to the mountains where I can't get a hold of you. I don't want to be able to talk to you at all until Monday. So we're going to put the house on Thursday. We're going to start showing it Thursday night. This thing was like a revolving door, like constant people going in and out of this house. By Friday, we already had offers, full price offer, said, we want you to accept it tonight. I said, sorry, my sellers are in the mountains. I can't get a hold of them. Sorry. Just can't. So we won't be able to look at offers till Monday. It was perfect because they were planning on going camping anyway. But so we got an offer for $350 the day we went on. Actually, it was $351. They were like, we gave you a more than full price offer. We want you to accept it today. Okay, thanks. We'll just wait till Monday. By Monday, we had 17 offers and we sold it for $373 and some change, with no appraisal contingency, no inspection contingency. And what else? There was something else, like a huge earnest money. It was like on that price of a house, it was like a $20,000 earnest money. So it was like this, by waiting and giving my seller, they would have been thrilled with $350 had they not known. Like as a for sale by owner, somebody walks up to you and says, I'll give you $351 day one. You're like, done, happy, right? But they would have lost out on $22,000. Even after paying me, they still came out ahead. Right? Way ahead. And he even said to me, this was a guy who had been a previous mortgage officer. And he said, I just figured I could do it myself. But you've more than paid for yourself and then some. And so that guy has now, this was a couple of years ago, has now referred so much business my way because he saw the value. Initially, when I met with them, he didn't see the value until I showed him. And that's what you have to do when you're talking to people. So yeah, you have more control of your time. Sellers, listings maximize your per hour compensation for sure. I mean, you're in control. You do have a lot more you're doing, but you get per hour, like, and versus buyers who, I was telling Molly, I was out with buyers. They wanted to be within a 30-mile radius or 30-minute radius of downtown. Like he works downtown. So they wanted to be, we saw 5 houses on a Saturday. It took 6 hours of driving to see these because we had to go all over the valley to see these 5 houses. But I could get 6 offers on one of my listings just sitting at home in my pajamas. So volume, obviously it's good for your volume in terms of your sales. Every once in a while, I have had where I've double-ended the deal, but I didn't represent both sides, but like, they're like, I don't want to be represented. I had a listing, excuse me, that before we even listed it, the next door neighbor knew they were going to be selling because they were, friends with them. They're like, no, we want our friends to come see it before you even put it on the MLS. And I'm like, heck no, I represent the seller. I know that's not a good move. So we're going to get on the MLS. We're going to do this. Well, the buyers came to town. They loved the house. They wanted to live next door to their friends. And they said, if we go unrepresented, then we don't need an agent. We don't need an agent. I'm like, okay. So I ended up actually getting both sides of the commission, like full commission on that deal. And now have new clients who think they're now my clients, now that they've bought the house, they are going to be constantly reminded that I'm their agent, even though I did not represent them. Right. So to them, I'm the one who helped them get into the house. I'm the one who did that for them. Let's see. Okay. Anyone have questions before I just keep blabbering on? Oh, the other part is, here's the service.
Hey, can you hear me on Zoom?
Sellers often need to buy. So if I have a seller who needs to sell and they need to buy. It's awesome. I love that. And I have had, even in the last couple of years where the market's been weird, I have had sellers, we've been able to get offers accepted contingent on selling their house, which you would not think happens right now, but it's happening, and it's happening more and more. But yeah, it's definitely happening. So let's see. All right. What else? What ahas do you guys have so far? Anything that's standing out to you? The reasons we talk about the ahas is that it helps cement them in your own brain, and it helps other people, you know, in the class. And I apologize for those of you on Zoom because I can't hear you, but anything? Okay, Lyric.
It's cool that you're really like got it down pat.
It's definitely something you need to get. And a lot of times it is mental. Like I've even, I've been at points, like I said, where in the short sale days where it was like, dang, I'm making a lot of money. And they're having to, like, it's not as hard when they get 200 grand and I get whatever, but if they're having to bring in money, and I know it's a hard thing for them to do, that was hard, so it was really, I had to change my mental shift to be like, you know what, if I had to go have surgery and I had a hard time paying for it, is my doctor going to care? They did their job, right? They're going to expect to be paid. So I had to kind of think of it that way, like separate myself from their money. Because a lot of times I put myself into the client's shoes too much. And that's kind of a downfall for me, is I care too much. But yeah, definitely had to come to that realization that I'm worth it and I'm doing what they asked me to do. So yeah. Yeah, please. Go ahead. I think you're good.
I had one listing where they wouldn't let me market their house. They wanted so much control over their house. Like, they didn't want a super key, be their phone showing.
Oh.
They didn't want to talk for the ones, the photos they took on their phone.
Oh.
Like, it was just so hard to work with. Have you ever dealt with anyone who like hires you as their agent and then doesn't let you be an agent?
I had to fire one seller about 2 years ago because it was, I had to fire a seller because their tenants were crazy, and their tenants were making my life miserable by like making accusations that the girl who did the open house stole things from them, which was absolutely and completely not true. Like, just complete crazy. Like, these people, I hope I never come across them on the street because they're crazy, like that kind of people. And I fired that seller. I said, when they move out, I'm happy to help you, but I cannot work with this circumstance. Depending on the situation, like certain things, like I tell my sellers, it is better for you not to be here when people come through, because if you're here, they cannot envision this as their house because they're walking into your house as a guest in your home. But if you're gone, they can start to look at it as if they might live there. And that's what we want. We want them to see the house as potentially theirs, right? But if you're there kind of guiding them, this is funny. I had a neighbor, lots of neighbors, but I've had a neighbor that was for sale by owner. And I had a client that wanted to see their house. So I actually showed it to them. The neighbor, he's so annoying. He was so annoying. He literally walked the entire house with us, just completely like right over her shoulder, like just super annoying, like every little detail that she didn't need to know. She later told me after she bought a different house, she said, honestly, I would have bought that house if he hadn't have been so annoying. If he hadn't have been there every step of the way, because I couldn't breathe in the house to picture it as mine. I couldn't get away from him and his annoyingness enough to feel like it could be my house. But she actually, like, I don't think a lot of people would have figured that out, but she verbalized that, like, I would have bought that house. That house was good for us, but he was so annoying. And I think a lot of for sale by owners are that way. They feel like they have to like micromanage every step of the way, and they need to get out of They need to get out of the way so you can do your job. So it's hard because you do have that delicate balance of like, trust me, this is going to be better for you if we do it this way, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like in my experience, and even though you don't have a lot, you can lean on other people's experience. In my experience, this has been a better thing. You could even just tell if you've gone in to show houses, like how awkward it is. Buyers don't want to open the cupboards because they feel like they can't. They want it out of there as fast as they can when the seller's home. They just feel awkward and uncomfortable. So we don't want that. I sold a house one time and they were there for like an hour. Is it weird that they like sat on our couches and like had a conversation? I'm like, no, that's good. They're picturing themselves living there. They're hanging out because they feel very comfortable, right? I mean, it's kind of weird, yes, but like it's a good thing. It's a good weird. So does that answer the question? Okay. And maybe you could even say, like with the pictures, I would say, oh yeah, for sure, we'll use your pictures also. But I'm gonna have my photographer do some, we'll use the ones you have, but I want to have some very specific, and just, you could blame it on something. Oh, I just want to have a very specific shot of whatever. I want to have a drone shot. I want to have this. And I think my photographer, and like you could even, I show them like some other work that my photographer's done or whatever. But and that's fine. If they were good, like it's probably fine. Oh no, no, it's good. That's good. Okay. Anyone else? Anything? Sorry, remind me your name in the back. Cade. You're good. Oh, okay, good. So could you hear? Okay. Right. Sorry. Okay, good. Because I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So let's go on to getting the appointment. Okay. The important thing is any market, any seller. So sellers and buyers always need to buy and sell. There's not a bad market and there's not a good market. That is one thing that during the recession before my previous broker kind of drilled in us. Like people always have to move for a job. People always have babies. People always get married, get divorced. Like these things happen regardless of what the economy is doing. So people will always need to buy and sell. Okay. So far we've talked a little bit about showing your value, following up and qualifying them. Okay, so we'll move a little bit more to the consultation. Okay, all right, let's talk about how to convert to appointments where you can win the seller. You're not going to win the seller over the phone. You're not going to win the seller over text. You need to be face-to-face. So what are some of the keys to getting that converted to a client? Obviously responding right away, getting their contact info. If they put in your online lead thing, if they put in Mickey Mouse, they're not a valid lead, right? People put in weird things. Determine their motivation to sell so you can speak to it. Why are they selling? Like I always try and ask the question, what has you thinking about moving right now? Because that gives me an idea, like, are they just thinking about it? Or are they really serious? Because if they're like, well, we're just thinking about it because we thought, values have gone up so much. I'm like, do you know where you would go if you sold? No, it gives me a better idea of where they're at in that spectrum versus my clients who said, we're building a house in Mona. It'll be done end of June. We need to sell. Oh, that's a pretty serious seller, right? And then set the appointment, time and day as soon as possible. If a lot of times people will tell me, well, we're interviewing agents. I want to be the first one there if I can, because I want to be able to put that first impression in their mind. If they're interviewing 3 or more agents, that's a lot. They're going to forget. I probably told this story in one of my other classes too, but so I had a client, their house had been on the market 2 years, 2 full years, 2 different agents, one agent 1 year, one agent next year. This was a long time ago when the market that wasn't too uncommon in that price range. It was a higher end home. And at that time, it was taking a year or 2 to sell that house. It was not uncommon, but both of those agents had terrible pictures on a high-end home, terrible pictures. They had terrible descriptions or minimal descriptions on the MLS about what the house had to offer. It was just really, really, really poor work. I mean, it was just really bad. So these guys lived in Maine. The house was in Saratoga. And my friend said, you need to call Amber. I go over to meet with them. And they said, okay, we've screwed up now twice. We've hired the wrong agent twice. And we've wasted 2 years. This house is sat on the market empty. They don't live here. They live in Maine. And we're not making that mistake again. So we're in town this week and we're going to talk to 10 agents to see who we want to list with. And I was like, holy crap, that is a lot of agents. I said, that's a lot of time commitment for you guys to do that. Because, I mean, you just think one agent is there for an hour, hour and a half, 10 agents, that's days. I mean, you're talking days of work. So they said, it's okay. We're here. That's why we're here. We want to find the right agent for us. Like, whoa, I don't know if I want to work with these people. They're kind of crazy, but I get it. Like, so they said, when we narrow it down a little bit more, we'll email out and let you guys know. So they narrowed it down to 4 and they emailed out this questionnaire to the 4 agents. And I was one of them. And the questionnaire was like 25 questions long. And I was like, these people are nuts. Like, they're going to micromanage everything. And I was like, I almost said, thanks, but no thanks. Like, these people are a little bit kooky. But I thought more on it and I was like, you know what? This could be good. Maybe they are a little kooky, but I can handle it. I can handle a little bit of kookiness. So after talking to 10 agents, the good thing was they had been overpriced, but after talking to 10 agents, they had a really good realistic value where they should be. And so they did agree to lower the price. And when I listed it, which I did after 10 agents interviewed, but what I did, a questionnaire, one of the things that they said that they chose me over the other 3. Part of the things that they asked was, what are you going to do when you list our house? Da, 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 da. And I said, I don't want to list your house. I want to sell your house. I don't want to just throw my sign in your yard and hope that phone rings. If you hire me to sell your house, I'm going to sell your house. And they said, none of the other agents had even said the word sell. They said, I want to list your house. I want to list your house. It's all about me. I want the listing. I'm like, no, it's about you. You want it sold. I want it sold. It does not do me any good to have my sign in your yard for a year, having people wonder, what am I doing wrong? Because they will. I mean, the neighbors, they will. They'll wonder what's wrong with me as the agent. So anyway, listed it. We took pictures that were amazing. But here's the thing, I should have pictures of it to show you. The front of the house was not super appealing. Like, it looked tiny. It looked really, really small. But the back of the house backed up to the golf course, and it had these like super tall windows, like gorgeous, like where you could see the view. So we actually used the back of the house picture as the main photo. And the buyer actually did say that that was what drew them in. We had that house on the market for 2 weeks and we had 3 offers. Just changing a few things, making it look good. But that's a pretty good story for me to tell. I beat out 9 other agents. to get that listing and sold it in 2 weeks when it had sat on the market for 2 years. So that's a benefit. And those, the buyers, they had an agent, but throughout the transaction, they didn't end up liking their agent. They call me every once in a while with questions. Those buyers, they, hey, I see you're still in the neighborhood. You're still selling homes. Every once in a while, I'll get a call from them like, well, wonder, about this and wonder about that. Love that. I want to be their resource. I want to be the one they think of. But yeah, those sellers were pretty motivated to get it sold. And they were willing to do what it took to financially make it work. Okay, so here's what sellers want from their agents. The total value that you're going to bring to the transaction is what's going to get you that repeat and referral business. So first impressions do matter. And these are all things that are going to help. So the sellers, if you had to pick one thing, I think sellers want all of these things. They want help to price their home appropriately. They want their home marketed, go figure, right? They want to sell it within a specific time frame. They want to see what they need to fix up in order to sell it for more. Those are big things. And so as you walk through houses, even as you're showing buyers houses, keep mental notes of what your buyers say. Because I remember when I was a newer agent, buyers walking through this house, and it was a small house. And they were like, the whole house needs to be repainted. We like it, but the whole house needs to be repainted. I think we should take 20 grand off the price. This was like a 1,100 square foot house. I'm like, it's not going to cost you 20 grand to paint that house. But in a buyer's mind, that was worth 20 grand to them. So keep notes of those things as your buyers are walking through houses and they're like, oh man, if we have to replace the furnace, it's going to be 50 grand. It's not. Joe. Totally. And their perspective on that last one. One, this is a buyer tip, but one buyer tip that I heard that I actually really like is if you have, let's say you have 4 houses you're going to show your buyer, and you have a pretty good idea which one they are going to like the most, do not show them that one last. Show them that one first so that they're comparing everything back to it, versus if you show it to them last, they're like, oh, everything keeps getting better. What's next? The next house is going to be even better. Where if you show it to them first, they're like, oh, I love this house. And then the next one they go to, they go, the first one was better. The second one they go to, the first one was better. So you're ruling other things out. Buyer tip, little tip. Okay, so sellers want from their agents. Okay, you want to build that confidence and trust. You are laying the foundation of your working relationship, and your first goal is to build that confidence and trust. So you have to exude confidence. And sometimes you have to do things that help you get there, because sometimes you're just not in the mood. Like sometimes you wake up and you're like, dang, today's the day I have that listing appointment. And so for me, I rely a lot on music, and I just will crank up the music in my house or in my car and just rock out until I get my head where I'm like, yes, I am their rock star, and they called me because they have a problem that I can solve. So music does a lot for me to kind of change my mindset. But other things that are really powerful, what's the book called? Oh, there's a book. It's really good. It's about, oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called. It's about how your physical, like body language and things like that will help you get where you're going. And one of the things she talks about is the superwoman pose. Like before you go into a listing or whatever, you find a bathroom or whatever, and you just do the superwoman pose because you're like, I got this, like that superwoman pose physically doing that puts your mind in a different state. Like some things like that will change your mindset. It's called presence, Presence, presence. I can't remember. It's a woman who wrote it. Really, really, really good. It's about your physical presence and how what you put out there is received by the other people. Well worth reading or listening to on Audible for sure. But those are little things that I do to help me build my confidence. And I still some days need to do that. Like even though I know I've been doing this for 26 years and I love it. And I know that people call me and they just want to list their house. Still, there's times when I'm like, yeah, today's not the day, everybody has it. So you have to show attentive professionalism by asking questions. And one of my favorite good questions that I've learned to ask, it was a Lee Stern class that I was in. If you ever get a chance to go to any Lee Stern's classes on listings, go. She's amazing. She's taken thousands of listings in her lifetime. She said the first thing she asks people when she sits down at the table is, if we decide to work together, what's one thing that I can do that will make this a great transaction for you? I love that question. And people always say, well, sell my house. And she's like, besides that. And then they say, well, get me the best price. Besides that, what's one thing that I could do to make this a great transaction for you? And I ask that question fairly regularly now. And I get blown away by some of the answers people give me. One of the answers was, this was a piece of land. It was an acre lot that had not sold. They had it listed with another agent before that was a friend in their neighborhood. And then my friend told them, you need to call Amber. So their listing expired. They called me up and they said, I asked the question, what do I need to do to make it a great transaction for you? They said, sell our land. I said, of course. Yes, of course. And what else? Get us a good price. Okay, of course. Yes. What else? They said, I don't know. Can you just make sure the sign stays up?
After it sells.
No, while it's for sale. Like, make sure the sign doesn't fall down. I was like, that's what's going to make this a great transaction for you. This is an acre piece of land. On one side, it backed a main road. On the other side, it backed another road. I said, you know what? I'm going to have two signs up there and they're never coming down. They're going to be up all the time. Because these clients drove past this lot every day. And so did their neighbor who lived in their neighborhood. And they were so annoyed. They would see the sign down for weeks or months on end. And the sign would never go back up. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll have one on the front, one on the back. We'll do this. And just talking to them about that gave me an idea that to be a little bit more creative, because I was like, selling land, it's dirt. What am I going to do to be creative to sell this dirt? I mean, it's price, it's location, it's dirt, right? But I started thinking about it in a different way. And I said, okay, who's going to be the buyer of this dirt? They're going to want to build a house here. They're going to want to build a dream house here. Why? Why are they going to want to build a dream house on this 1 acre plot right here? Because they're going to love waking up to the sunrise over Utah Lake, right? So I called my photographer and I said, hey, what would you charge me to take sunrise shots over the lake? He told me the number and I said, that's not enough, but okay. Sure. I hired him to go take sunrise shots of the lake. He went, they're gorgeous. He's done the drone thing, the whole thing. That land sold. It was December when we listed it. And I told them, I said, it will not sell till spring. This was a couple years ago. I said, people don't buy land in December. They will start when it starts to warm up. They'll start thinking about it. They'll start thinking about building. It will sell probably April, May. Like I had in my mind and I had prepared them. And we had an offer within a week. Of course, we had it closed before Christmas. We listed it beginning of December. We had it closed before Christmas. You think I'm their hero? Absolutely. Their neighbor who's their friend? Not a chance, right? So just thinking of things a little bit differently, like who is going to be the buyer of this house? Who's going to be the buyer of this land? how am I going to appeal to that person? And I often tell my sellers, okay, you bought this house 15 years ago when you were young, newlyweds with a baby and one on the way, right? That's going to be who's going to buy your house this time around. It's going to be the same type of buyer. So what I ask them, what appealed to you about this house at that stage of your life? And let them fill in some of the blanks so that you know what to put in the listing. By asking the right questions, you're going to get a lot of confidence and trust from them. So, and they want an agent who cares. Like, this is their home. This is something they have pride and joy in. And they want to make sure that the agent, like, some are more emotional than others. Like, I've seen some sellers really, really emotional and they want it to go to a good family. Others are like, just give me money. So it depends, but you've got to be able to be aware of that. So, okay. So close to get the appointment. Show the benefits of working with you. We kind of talked about that a little bit with why not for sell by owner. I honestly don't even know what the take back close is, so I apologize. We're going to skip that one. Give them what they're looking for. What are they looking for? The trial close. Oh, okay. Would it better for you if I came on Wednesday at 4:00 or, next Monday at 2? Give them options. Assume that you're gonna get it. Well, I sometimes say things like, awesome. Well, I'm your girl. Like, I can do that for you. Let's meet tomorrow. Just assume that you're gonna get the appointment and then tie them down to that. So, okay. So questions, we talked a little bit about this, about objections versus questions. So sometimes people are just asking you a question and we think it's an objection. And so we go way overboard in our head trying to resolve their objection. And that's not always what they're doing. So sometimes you have to just step back. It's exhausting to try and handle everything as as an objection. So I talked about, okay, another agent said they would do it for X, but what if they just ask, here we go. What if they just ask you, what's your commission? That's just a question, right? What do you charge for commission? Is it? So if you have different tiers of levels of service, then that's, sometimes I even still I hear that question and I think, oh, someone's offered to do it for less, but sometimes it's not. It's just, what do you charge? Well, I charge 3% for my part and we charge 3% to go to the buyer's agent. Oh, a lot of times I do. And a lot of times buyers or sellers don't even question that. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's normal. 3 and 3, done. Unless they say, and someone said they would do it for less. So this is when I go into that, yes. Okay. So this is not the market, but back in the day, agents, and they're probably getting more desperate right now, because I would say, I believe you get what you pay for, but a lot of agents they want to list your house just to get their sign in your yard. When they get their sign in your yard and they get a buyer that calls, they are going to hope that buyer buys the house down the street, because they're not going to make any money when they sell your house. But if they sell the house down the street, they're going to make some money. And they're like, oh, sellers always that never dawns on them. So they want that sign to stay in your yard as long as possible and keep your listing active, because the more calls come in, the longer it's active. And they can sell 3 houses in your neighborhood while yours sits here and doesn't sell. Is that what you want? And they're like, I never thought of it that way. So I always tell them, you're actually giving your listing agent motivation to sell your neighbor's house. Does that make sense? It does not make sense. You're motivating them to keep your house on the market longer and keep it not selling so they can collect more buyers. Yeah, Joe.
seller comes in, we're gonna buy a house. Commission on that, let's give it to our house for. Seems like it's typically.
It depends. I will do that with, I'll do 2% on my side. If they're going to buy with me. I do it on the sell. A lot of people do it on the buy, but it's just less complicated for me to do it on the sell. Figure it out. Exactly. Yeah. So if you're going to buy with me and sell with me, then yeah, I will discount you. It's a win-win. I'll discount you 1% on the sale. And it comes off my side, not the buyer's agent commission. So that's not something if I'm willing to give it up, it's coming out of me. BAC. It depends. Like if they're buying a bigger house, like let's say they're selling a $300,000 house and buying a 6, I'm just going to call it a wash. Yeah. I'm not going to complain over, a little bit of money. I'm going to be happy for them. They're going to refer people to me. So I figure in the long run, it all works out. Right. So if I can get the extra 0.5% from the seller, I will ask for it, but it just depends on market conditions and what's going on, multiple offers and all that fun stuff. So I try and hammer that home that any agent will list your house for free or basically free. But if you hire me to sell your house, I don't work that way. I want to sell your house and I want to be motivated to sell your house. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay. All right. More ahas. What do you guys got? Anything?
It's really smart about this line, because I get that a lot too when I'm I have to
And why will they do it for 0.5%? You should ask them. Why would they do it for 0.5%? That's odd. Yeah, what's motivating? And I have taken over listings where this is so funny. I've taken over listings where somebody called me up and said, yeah, we had it on the MLS with this other agent, but they didn't do anything. And I said, well, what were they charging you? And they told me, and I was like, well, of course they weren't doing anything. You didn't pay them anything. You weren't offering to pay them anything. I wouldn't do anything if you were offered to pay me that either. And they were like, oh, duh. Like it didn't even dawn on them. They thought by hiring an agent, they would get full service, even though they were only paying 0.5% or 1%. It doesn't work that way. You get sloppy. Yeah, it's sloppy and cheap and good luck if you can get a hold of them. Yeah. So I am a firm believer in you get what you pay for. So I really try to hammer that home. Awesome. Anything else? Anyone wants to share any other ahas? Checking our time. We got half an hour left. Lyric.
The other really big objections I get is, my son-in-law's brother-in-law is an agent. I think I'll go with them when I end up selling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
At that point, I usually just let it go because I'm I don't know.
Well,
would you handle that?
So I've done both. I've let it go and I've said, well, are they the best agent for you? Do you know that they're the best? Just because you're sort of kind of almost related to them doesn't necessarily make them the best agent for you. What are they going to do for you? Are they just assuming they're going to get this listing because they know you? And are they going to do anything? Right, exactly. Because I've been on that side of it too. The brother-in-law's brother. See, yeah, you just never know who's going to be the right agent for them. And sometimes I've walked out of a listing appointment before and said, yeah, I'm not the agent for them. I've even been on a phone call with a guy who was like, yeah, well, we expect this isn't, I'm not the agent for you then. Sorry, I don't do that. He wanted a rebate back and stuff like that. And yeah, no, I don't work that way. Sorry, thanks. But yeah, you never know who's going to be the right fit. So it's worth asking the question, are you sure that they're going to be the right fit for you? What can you lose? Right.
And those friends, they have worse photos ever.
So it's funny because you would think, okay, so I would think if I'm going to hire a family member is going to do a better job for me than anyone else would, right? I would think that logically. But for some reason in Utah and in real estate, it's the opposite. And there's a reputation. And so I actually remember I was representing my nephew on a house he was buying up in Syracuse, which is kind of far. But I remember the agent being like, oh, well, he's your nephew. So are you going to even do anything for him? I'm like, of course I am. He's my nephew and I like him. Like, but a lot of, there's a reputation that if you're related to them, you're just going to not do anything. So I try and go over and above for my family. Like I want them to feel like it was a good experience and that they are going to call me again versus, oh, I used my family last time and it sucked, like that's not what we want. We want them and we want their friends and family and we want referrals from them. So yeah, unfortunately that's a sad reputation that people get in Utah. But also one other thing to be aware of as we're kind of talking about all this, we have to be safe. We have to be safe and the world's gone mad. So you have to be careful when you go on a listing appointment. It doesn't matter who you are and how big, tall, muscular, whatever you are, you have to be safe that you know that you're going on a legit listing appointment, that you're actually talking to someone who wants to sell a house. Most of my business, because I've done this for so long, comes to me from repeat and referral. So when I get a phone call, and I had this happen several years ago, I got a phone call from random guy. Yes. Random guy who said he was referred to me. And I said, oh, great. Who referred you to me? Well, I'd rather not say. That alone is weird, right? That alone is weird. He had a big, huge house up in Woodland Hills, and he wanted me to come see about listing it. And I said, well, I mean, I'd love to. I just need to know who referred you to me. And he would not tell me. And I said, okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I can't do it. And he was shocked. What? You're not going to come? I said, I don't know you. And I don't know who referred you to me, but no, I'm not. I'm not comfortable. I was not comfortable. I got that creepy heebie-jeebie feeling. And I was like, I'm not going to some house and end up in his basement dead, right? Like, I don't know how this guy got my number or who he thinks I am, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, but it just gave me that skin on the back of my neck, like curl. And like, I was like, sorry, it may be $1 million listing and it may sell next week, but it's not worth me being dead in his basement. Seriously, you just don't know. There's crazy people out there. And I never even looked to see if that house ever sold. I didn't care. I was just like, boom, out of my mind. It was so creepy. I didn't want to know. And I didn't even care. So anyway, enough about my fun stories. Okay, so let's move on to, this is not in the same order, pre-listing packet. Okay, and I'll be honest, I'll be 100% honest. I've never in 26 years used a pre-listing packet, so I may not be the poster girl for this, but pre-listing packet, getting started, I can see how it can help you get, set you apart a little bit. I've had some people and the other agents tell me that they got listings because they were set apart because they dropped off a day before their appointment, a pre-listing packet. Great. Most of my pre-listing packet is the friend who referred them to me. So I don't feel the need to do that, but it could be a great way to set yourself apart. It can save you some time if they look at it and they read it, and it can help pre-sell you and state your value before you even get to the house. So, but it also does communicate a level of professionalism and value. I love Clay Winder's story. I don't know if you guys have heard this story. He talked about how he uses a pre-listing packet, or he was starting to use a pre-listing packet, and he had it all printed out, ready. He brought it over to their house. He knocked on the door and said, hey, we're going to meet tomorrow, but I just wanted to leave this with you. And the lady was like, well, you're here now, so just come on in. And he was not prepared. So have someone else deliver it, like just drop it on the door. But like he wasn't prepared for that. So it caught him off guard. So I just love that story because it reminds me, don't do that, right? Don't do that. We learn from others. We learn from what other people do, whether it's good or bad. And we've all made mistakes and we've all done some crazy things. So, okay, here we go. Purposeful approach. So when I got into real estate, I was very comfortable at doing what comes naturally to me. And that's more the E, which is the entrepreneurial, like it's natural for me to be able to talk to people. I never did any like cold calling or door knocking. Like those were not things that were natural to me and didn't feel natural to me. So I never did anything like that. But I also never did a lot of other things like creating the systems, creating the drip programs, the 2036 touch. I never did any of that very well. I inconsistently would send out mailings. I would inconsistently do this here and there to where I remember very vividly, one of my very first clients called me back. I mailed to him. He was on my mailing list, whatever. He called me one day and said, "Hey, are you still in real estate?" I was like, crap, I am not doing my job because he doesn't even know I'm still in real estate. But moving that to the systems, what's really interesting is I came over to KW and really started focusing on systems. The first 2 years that I was here, at the end of the year, you get your 1099 of how much income you'd made. And the first year I was here, it was pretty similar to what I had made the year before at my previous brokerage. And then the second year when I got my 1099, I literally was doing my taxes and looking at them side by side, and they were less than $500 apart from one year to the next, like almost identical amount of money I had made. And then I realized that's my comfort zone. My comfort zone is making this much money. I want to make more than that. And like putting systems and things into place. 2020, I made 3 times that number from the first 2 years I was here, more than 3 times that number. So once I realized it and realized that was my like plateau, my comfort level, this is a good level for me, I'm happy making this much money. Once I realized it and started implementing some different things into my business, my income skyrocketed. So do it early. Do it when you're getting started. That will give you the ability to make that skyrocket sooner. Anyone have questions on that process? Okay. So that's when you hit the breakthroughs. Okay, pre-listing packets. These are kind of out of order. Pre-sell. Yeah, it's going to help the builder give you the confidence with the sellers, answer some of their questions and objections, and saves you some time, saves your value. Okay, so what should you have in the pre-listing packet? What you don't want to have is like a 50-page document that they're not going to read. So make it short, 10 pages or less. And is it things that you're already going to be going over during the listing presentation? Is it going to help you save that time to eliminate the need for talking about it? Or is it just like a primer for educating them that you're going to give them at the listing? So, and I like the last words on there, the listing consultation. Everyone talks about all the time, I'm going on a listing appointment, going on a listing appointment, going on a listing appointment. I have a listing presentation. I have a listing presentation. I have a listing presentation. I love the word consultation much, much more. Because I tell my clients, well, I want to consult with you on what your needs are. I'm going to customize my consultation based on what you tell me. It sounds more like someone says, I'm going to come do a Cutco knife presentation at my house. I'm going to be like, I don't want to sit through a presentation. But if someone wants to come and consult with me on what my needs are, that just sounds more inviting. and more about me than about what they have to say that I have to shut up and listen to, right? So I just the words we use can make a big difference. Like, think about that as you go through. Okay, pre-listing packet. Have you guys seen in Designs and Command, you can create your own customized pre-listing packet it's not hard to do. And a lot of the meat of it is already there for you. So you just kind of need to plug in your information, your name, your phone number, your email, your face, KW Westfield logo, all that. So, okay. So then to prepare to go on your listing consultation, you can go ahead and deliver that pre-listing packet, confirm the appointment time. If it's more than like tomorrow, like definitely reconfirm that with them. Ensure that all decision makers can attend. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure that everyone who's deciding if they're going to sell this house is there? Yeah, definitely. If there's more than one owner, try and make sure they're both going to be there. I've seen some weird stuff out there, guys. I've had a guy call me who wasn't on title at all. His father was, but his father was in California, but I want to sell this house. I'm like, well, your father needs to sell the house. He's the one on title. And he called me for years. And then I was just like, you can't, unless you have power of attorney specific to sell this house for your father, I can't help you. Sorry. But sometimes you have to be a little bit flexible too. Like I had one time where it was weird, but it was like, all right, I'm going to take a chance on this one. Because guy called me, I was actually the guy's mom, called me up and said, hey, my son needs to sell his house. He's in the middle of a divorce. And I asked her, I'm like, is the wife on title? No, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. This is the mom I'm talking to. And I'm like, all right, well, let's just give this a shot and see what happens. So I go out, I look on title and I didn't see the wife's name on title. And I go out, I meet with him. He had no idea if his wife's name was on title or not. Like he had no clue. I was like, you think you would? No, she wasn't on title at all. Luckily for us, because apparently she was like legitimately crazy, like lost her mind. Yeah, so it was good for us that during this divorce, he could sell the house without having to sign, because she was like, yeah, a little bit crazy. But we did sell it, but it was just like, I needed to double and triple check with the title company that there was no issues with him selling it. And I had, again, it's like one of those things, like you need to check with your attorney that you can sell this while you're in the middle of this divorce. Because some attorneys will say, no, you cannot. You need to wait till the divorce is final and then deal with it. But the way he took title to that property, it was his sole and separate property, even though he was a married man. So just had to be even more careful, but we did sell it. But in that case, I wasn't sure if all the decision makers were going to be there or not, but it worked out. And then practice your listing presentation. You don't want to show up and just sit there and be like, all right, so you want to sell your house? You need to bring the things that are going to give you value to them. And everybody is different. And that's why we ask a lot of questions at the beginning about their motivation. Like, what is motivating them to sell? And then even asking, like, so they're like, okay, so I've got to move to a job in Minnesota. I've got to be there June 1st. So that's a pretty high motivation. And then even asking follow-up questions like, well, what happens if the house isn't sold by June 1st? Well, then we're in a world of hurt because we can't afford to pay for two houses. Okay, so you're getting more, you're uncovering levels of the onion of their motivation and like really getting a good idea of how you're going to be able to best help them. And then review the lead sheet. You're going to have some information that you can go over before you get there, like things that you know about the house. Always ask a lot of questions on the phone about the house. I always tell them, like, I can look a few things up on the county records, but there's certain things it won't necessarily tell me or are not accurate. So do you know have you guys like finished the basement since you bought it? That's not always accurate on the county records. I one time showed up to a listing appointment all prepared with all my numbers of value. And I got there and they're like, oh, we forgot to tell you, we added 1,000 square foot addition onto the back of the house. I'm like, all my numbers are crap. Because everything I had prepared was for a smaller house. So I didn't look very good in that instance because I was not prepared. I didn't ask enough of the questions. And then obviously arrive professionally. If you, okay, so I do like music. I like music in my car, but when I'm driving up to their house, it does get turned down. So I don't show up with music blaring and the squealing tires. And, I want to show up like the professional that I am. Obviously dressed professionally, obviously on time, and obviously like just being there as a resource for them. So, okay. We'll skip that one. We'll keep going because we're running out of time. So here's the listing appointment. Our goal is to get the signed listing agreement. And we're going to do that by creating a great first impression, get their seller's confidence, and you are their agent of choice. They may know, I've actually done a deal with clients who said, we have 3 different family members who are realtors and we can't use any of them because if we pick one, then we're alienating the other 2. So we're going to use someone who's not family. Okay, I got the deal. So yeah, it was weird. I was like, really? Okay. Pricing. This is where I go over and above preparing before I go to their house. I want to know everything that has sold in their neighborhood, so I can have a really good reason behind it. I still remember a house that I sold. It was in Murray and my clients were moving to American Fork. And when I looked at the comps in this neighborhood in Murray, older like 70s, 80s homes, and there was a huge gap between like the homes that hadn't been updated and the homes that had been updated, like a couple $100,000 swing between, this one sold for 400, this one sold for 7. And similar sized homes. I'm like, what the heck? So when I got to the house and I didn't know, people always tell you our house has been updated, but what does that mean to them versus what does that mean to us as selling it? So I really went in there kind of afraid, like, I don't know how to price this house. And I will never give a price quote over the phone. I might give a range if I really have to, but I try to avoid that because I tell them I really can't give you a value on your house until I've seen it. There are a lot of things besides square footage, bedrooms, and baths that will account for value. If it smells like 16 cats, that's going to change the value. And I say that. I tell them that. They always laugh. And I'm like, I hope they don't have 16 cats, before I get to their house. But also things like just the flow, the way that house is laid out can change the value. So I always try to be really careful. But I want to go in with all the information in front of me so that I can justify my pricing. And set expectations for how you're going to market the home and how you're going to work with sellers, how you're going to communicate with them. So I actually have a friend who owns land up in Vermont. She owns 15 acres of land up in Vermont. I just referred her to an agent in Vermont to sell that land. And I'm like, oh boy, she keeps calling me. She's not doing anything. And I'm like, oh no, like this is not boding well for me. But just communicate, like tell them how you're going to communicate. With my sellers, I generally say, you are going to get an email from me once a week. And if we need to talk more often, great, but you're going to get at the minimum, you're going to get a weekly email saying everything I've done that week. And I'm going to put everything I've done in there. Like it could be something as silly as I talked to the title company about this for 10 seconds. Everything I've done goes on that. That's continuing to build your value. And as the market shifts and we have longer time on market for sellers, that's going to be important. You don't want your seller saying, what are you doing? How come I'm not hearing from you? Because that's the most frustration that sellers have, is not knowing what their agents are doing. So tell them what you're doing, every single little thing. Okay. How the listing presentations meets the seller's needs and wants. Okay, so this is part of in designs, the listing presentation that you can use. And it talks about your selling, what the seller's needs are. So I kind of use a version of this when I get there. I say, okay, when I'm asking them about their motivation and like why you need to move, I say, okay, so in a perfect world, if you could choose, and if I could just wave my magic wand and make it happen, when are you moving? They're like, oh, I don't know, maybe end of summer. That tells me something about their motivation. That tells me if they're like yesterday, that tells me something about their motivation. Yeah, like what is perfect world? If you could pick, what's going to be the thing that's going to make this great for you? So, and then how can I help make that happen? Why? Why is that important to you? Sometimes the why is hidden and we need to ask why. I probably told this story before too in some of my other classes, but I had a seller one time, we were selling their house and they were building another house. They'd already started building the new house before I met them. They were referred to me and I went out to sell their house. The market wasn't what it is today. It was taking a little bit of time. We were probably 2-3 months into it and the house hadn't sold. And just, I'd been in contact with them. I'd been in pretty frequent contact. The seller, the husband called me up one day and just chewed me out. And I was like, what is going on? Why isn't this house sold? And what are you doing? And I'm like, we've been talking about it. Like, he just was so upset and I was so out of character for him. So I was like, what is going on? Well, come to find out, we did sell the house and the wife actually called me up maybe a month or two after closing. And she said, now I know why he was so anxious to get that house sold. It wasn't so that we could get into the new house. They actually backed out on the new house that they were building and got divorced. He had been planning it all along. She had no idea to get divorced as soon as the house sold. She had no idea. And that's why he was taking his frustration out on me, because why isn't this house sold? I want to get divorced. And meanwhile, not telling his wife a darn thing. She's thinking they're building this bigger, beautiful house. And that's not the case. So sometimes the why is deeply hidden, but asking the right questions can at least help you get there. And sometimes we'll never know what that why was. Like, if she hadn't called me later, I would have never known that. Like, I wouldn't have known that that's what happened. Okay. All right, guys. This is your affirmation. Have you done this one before? Did you say yes? No. Like, these are always, I am knowledgeable and caring and the best agent for these clients. It's a good thing to tell yourself before you go on the appointment. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation, and they will choose me to represent them as they sell their home. Pretty good to have in your mind. Like, just to go over that you are the agent for them. Cool. All right. Obviously, you're going to update in opportunities all along the way. Okay, this is one that I have beef with Gary Keller on, the walkthrough, because Gary tells to do it one way and I do not like it. So Gary says, when you go to the house, okay, so you go to the house, you get there, you greet them at the door. Hi, how are you? Thanks for meeting with me. I always try to, even right at the front door, look for something to compliment them on. Oh, your purple peonies are so pretty. Your flowers, or something, anything at all. Your front door, I love the color of your front. I'm serious. Like, but I want to be genuine. So I'm looking for something real. Your yard looks so good, something real and genuine that I can compliment them on. Because number one, they know that I'm on their side. They know that I'm looking out for what makes their house cool and special. Right? So I'm looking for something to compliment them on. And then I am asking them, is it okay if I leave my stuff at your kitchen table? You guys have probably talked about that a little bit. Why do we go to the kitchen table? You can sit. It's where they make hard decisions. You know, they're not going to, well, and if you want them to sign something, it's the best place to get them to sign something. So, okay. So then I like to sit at the kitchen table and ask a few of the questions like, you know, in a perfect world, what could we do? When do you want to be moving? Ask their motivation questions. And usually they're like, well, do you want to see the house first? I'm like, no, I'd actually rather talk a little bit first and then have you show me the house. And this is just me. Everyone does it differently. And so they're always, so I talk to them, ask them a few motivation questions. And then I say, okay, great. Now, before we get into too much of like the details of pricing or whatever, I never want to talk pricing until I've seen their house. So Gary says, have them stay at the kitchen table. You go walk through their house. I don't like that. He says, because your reasoning is that you're going to look through it as if you're the buyer, looking at it through the eyes of the buyer. That's fine. But I use that time for two things: build rapport and find things that ask them questions about their house, like things that are special about their house. So, for example, like as we walk through their house, like people always have things on the wall, places they've traveled, places they've lived. I try to find connections with them. Oh, have you traveled to Holland? Oh, I've been there too. What did you like the best? But whatever it is, like try and find those things that are connections. And I have, as we walk through the house, I say, will you point out to me things that you've done to improve the house since you bought it? Like did you finish the basement? Did you add a fireplace? Did you, whatever things that you've done, and things that might be hidden, things that I might not be able to see as I just walk through the house. Because a buyer, as they're walking through your house, they're not going to be able to know, like, behind this wall, there's, it's plumbed in for a future fireplace, but we never put one in, or whatever, something like that. Because those are the things I want to make sure that I highlight to the buyers when we do have it listed. So I take that time, I walk through the house with them, and then go back to the kitchen table and then talk about price. Because I could tell you some stories of some houses, but one house I vividly remember, I didn't get the listing and I wasn't sad because these people were handy, but not DIY on a very low level. So walk down into the basement. I remember that old Pergo laminate floor that was like super cheap crap laminate flooring. Like the new stuff nowadays is really nice. They had put this on the ceiling of their whole basement, this crappy, ugly, terrible looking laminate wood floor on the ceiling of their whole basement. And they were really proud of it. And I was like, I actually said, honestly, I probably would take it out and put it back to drywall. They're like, really? Like, yeah, it's only going to appeal to a certain segment of buyers. And we don't want to, eliminate potential buyers who, and I, say it in a nice way, but I was like, yeah, it's really not going to appeal to most buyers, honestly. Oh, they were shocked. And we go up to the kitchen and they had redone their kitchen. And, those like 18 by 18 tiles that go on the floor, they had them all up the walls. And it looked like you could walk on the walls. Like it looked horrible. They had them like below the cabinets and above the cabinet. It was hideous. It was disgusting. It was gross. And the front of their house was purple. It was not a nice, it was ugly. This house was ugly and they had crap everywhere, and it would have taken a lot. And they wanted a crazy number for their house. And I was like, yeah, I'm probably not the agent for you. And I was happy to walk away from that one because it would have been hard, and they wouldn't have been happy with me, and I wouldn't have been happy with them. So Yeah, I could have potentially made some money off of it, but I was not regretting that walking away from that. So, so anyway, that's how I differ on that. But as you walk through, I usually do jot down notes, and I ask them, is it okay if I make notes as we walk through? Little things. You can also you could print out from the MLS the data input sheet, and you could use that to fill in blanks or things like that. Let's see. So handwritten thank you note after, always good idea. All right, we are finishing up, guys. We're a few minutes over. So, and last ahas for today. Anyone else besides Lyric? I love your input, Lyric. No, you're good. You're good. Anyone have any other ahas? Anything? Anything? Every agent that teaches these classes is different. And like I've heard agents say, well, this agent said I would never do this. And I'm like, I always do that. You know? Or this agent said I would always do this. And I'm like, I never do that. So it's take what from these classes, what works for you. That's the thing. I don't, yeah, anyone can list your house. All you need is a real estate license for that. It's done. And honestly, that was what they told me why they chose me, that I was looking at the sale, not just having a listing. Because having a listing is great, but I want to sell your house. And I think that is the MO of some agents. They just want to have listings. I don't want to have them. I want to sell them. Yeah. And there's no worse feeling than at the end of the day, a listing expiring and you have to go pull your sign out of the yard. Like that's the worst feeling. I like pulling my sign out of people's yards, but when it's sold, not when it's not selling. So, cool. Any other questions for me, Lyric? You're good. You're good. It's all good.
I admire the fact that you like walk away from those things maybe as a new agent.
It wasn't, yeah, for sure.
But I'd like to get to that point because I've dealt with so many difficult for selling
Crazy people. Yeah.
I lost the listing because she didn't pull my name out of the glass bowl.
What?
So that she interviewed 38.
30?
And so when I went to the listing permit, she requested that I help my mom with the listing permit.
What?
$5 million.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I love it.
She had 30 agents and like each one brought a listing presentation and she threw them in bags. So she had 2 bags full of listing presentation. Like,
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
she wasn't super motivated to sell. And then I got a random phone call. Hey, out of like the 4 agents, you know, I wrote your name on a piece of paper, put it in a glass jar, and I just pulled one out and that's just selling my house. I really wish I would have walked away from this listing.
Weird.
I admire the fact that you do it.
Well, sometimes, so not always. Sometimes I take the weird ones, but Joe, you were going to say something. I love it. They're a good fit for her. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not going to waste my time with some crazy people. Just kidding. Sometimes we do. And yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, you bet.
So we've all been in the 2 years of craziness and it's been great.
Sellers. It's been great for sellers. Yeah.
Now we're kind of starting to move into longer term
Listings. Yeah. Don't be scared of that.
what are some things that you can do to keep that listing
Fresh.
fresh? Sellers, they were super motivated, but they were telling me that the only way to buy, sell and buy was a listing at this price.
Hi.
Really high, did have horse property, did have an acre lot. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, justifications and this other house is listed for this. Drop their price.
Ouch. Ouch.
No.
Oh.
The internet actually dropped it at 100,000 as well.
Mm,
I found out later that they did have room. They were trying to make 100,000,
for sure. You'll see that.
but it's still no, I'm not getting any phone calls. I'm not getting any
Hmm.
showings.
That's a hard one. Sometimes it's just being patient. Like sometimes May is a weird month in Utah because so many graduations and end of the school year, moms are busy, kids are busy. And so May and July are often quiet, weirdly. Yeah. Yeah. And especially where we've had such a cold May, June generally picks up. So I would maybe just tell them, just be patient. If it matters to take fresh pictures, I would do that. Like if the season has changed enough that the pictures look different, that's one way. Pricing is always going to be one way to get it back out on the hot sheets on the MLS, but yeah, but the right buyer won't care. It will be fine. 20 days isn't long. 20 days is not long. It's not. Yeah. Oh, and it's horse property, so that's a desirable. Yeah. No, that's desirable. There'll be the right buyer will come along. I wouldn't worry. Yeah. Bummer. Gotcha. It's hard. There's a lot of things. I mean, the things that I would do that are relatively inexpensive to tell your seller, hey, this is what I'm doing. Social media ads are so cheap. And, you can do those and tell your seller, hey, I've freshed the social media ads or whatever, things like that. Reaching out to other agents who've sold homes in those areas, that's free. Reaching. Oh, yeah. Well, because even look at other horse property that has sold and who the agents are who have sold those agents have buyers that are looking for horse property. Look at South County and who the agents are. I can tell you a couple of them, but who are selling horse property, and call them. Hey, so I've got this listing. We dropped it $100,000. It's a great property. Just wanted to let you know.
And then the other thing is like classes that talk about this, but like when you list it.
Yeah.
You have to, like, I know there's a lot of syndications that
Mhm.
automatically do it, but
Yeah.
they sell Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace because
Yeah.
negative for a lot of people.
Yeah.
People are gonna like rent for the rest of their lives.
Right.
It's way too expensive, but I'll pay $3,000 a month in rent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
And if it's sure, and that's fine. But yeah, whatever you can do that's relatively inexpensive, it's always good. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
Looking back today, like it's typical that it's
6 months or more.
Especially on land, right?
Land was hard. Oh, land used to be really hard. So
even with no traffic, no showing.
land is hard because you don't know who's looking at it. They could be driving by and we don't know. So, right? Yeah. All right. Well, you guys are awesome.